Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. So it's been a while. It's been over 3 months since I uploaded my last video, and almost 4 months since I promised this follow-up to me getting the MacBook Pro. So I originally said it would be about a month until I uploaded that video, and on kind of like the month anniversary, I guess, of me getting it, I would just review it and talk about how good my experience with it was. I know some of you have been waiting for it. One guy commented on the original video saying that he would be back in a month for the review, and of course, like I said, we're nearly 4 months later. So I guess I'll start off with my bad experiences so far. For a while, I was having issues with my E key. There was something stuck under it. I believe a piece of dust or styrofoam from work got under there, and the E key wouldn't actually register a press. Nothing would display when I hit that key. I may have some video of it, and I'll throw that in if I can find it. Another pretty significant issue I've had with it is up until I upgraded to Mojave, which brought a firmware update to the system, I experienced quite a few crashes. And by quite a few, I mean only 3, but that was within the first month of me having the system. But since that update, I think I've had 1 crash, maybe, if I remember correctly. So the issue seems to be relatively fixed, but like I said, for the first month of me having it, for it to crash 3 times, it's quite a lot. A few of us in the Lewis Rossman Discord discussed that the T2 chip and its like Bridge OS or whatever Apple calls it might have some instability, and I'm just going to blame it on that. I didn't think the instability they were talking about would have been that bad, but I guess it was. Like I said though, the issue was fixed with the Mojave release and the firmware update. I guess the kind of complaint I have about it is Boot Camp. I have a 64GB Boot Camp partition on the computer, and I may or may not have said it in one of my 2 MacBook Pro videos so far, but I wanted to have an external volume that I could boot into Windows. I had that set up on my Mac Pro when I used to run Boot Camp for gaming on that, and I'm not sure because that technically counts as an internal drive, but the MacBook is configured to support external booting, so I don't know what the problem is with that. Kind of another issue I have involving Boot Camp is that I can't install Linux on this computer. Basically, from what I've been reading, Apple locked out the internal drive from anything other than macOS and Windows 10, and that for me is actually quite irritating. I've been using Linux Mint a lot at school, and I really like it. I'm going to be using it on a gaming computer I'm building pretty soon, and of course I can't install it on this computer. I have read a little bit about using an external drive, but once again this computer seems to not really like boot camping into external volumes. And especially with Apple locking out access to the internal drive, I could see it being tricky or impossible to get Linux running on this. And if you're wondering about using a virtual machine, I'd rather just have it be running on the hardware, not a virtual machine. Kind of the last bad point I'm going to go into is I've had some weird kind of speaker popping issues when I adjust the volume mainly, and it's not all the time. It's actually pretty rare, probably once every 2 weeks or so, once every 3 weeks it happens. And it's really only when I adjust the volume, but I get like a popping sound when I hit the buttons and stuff. One time I had my volume at about 75 to 85%, and I played a song that started off really loud, and when I went to turn down the volume, the popping persisted when I would hit the buttons for probably a good minute after. I'm probably going to kind of blame that on the T2 architecture. So going into good things, it's pretty funny because speakers are listed as the first good point, considering what we were just talking about. The speakers on this computer continue to be probably the best I've ever heard. That also includes external speakers and good headphones and everything. I do have some nice Yamaha speakers downstairs that I plan to set up. Those speakers will probably be better than the ones on this computer, but of course those are desktop studio grade speakers. Second good point I want to talk about is the display. Of course, this is a 2880 by 1800 display crammed in a 15-inch space. And of course Apple has a name for that, it's a Retina display. But I run this computer mainly at 1920 by 1200 scaled. Sometimes I go to 1680 by 1050 if it's like at night and my eyes are straining. But overall, it's a really nice display. Colors are amazing on it. And of course, it's a display, so there's not really a huge lot to say about it other than it's really nice. This computer came configured with a base processor, base video card, a 512GB SSD, and 32 gigs of RAM. That is my third talking point. I've actually caught myself using about 24.5 gigs of RAM on this computer. At any given time, I have quite a few browser windows open, each one with 15 to 20 tabs open, along with running things like Messages, Discord, Pages, Numbers, iMovie, GIMP in the background. Having access to 32 gigs of RAM in my workstation is really nice. I haven't maxed out the system, which is quite hard to do on 32, but like I said, I've been past 24 gigs of RAM, and it's nice to have that headroom in terms of memory. The battery life on this computer is quite amazing. I can usually get maybe 2 or 3, 4 hours out of it when I'm using it constantly. My main charger is on my desk here in my room, but there are times I go down to my basement to work on my server and I'll be down there for 3 or 4 hours at a time working on it. And of course, it's really nice to have a computer with a brand new battery in it. I believe this is the first computer I've ever had with a new battery, and so far I'm really liking the experience. Another thing I have in my notes is the charge time. I'm just going to kind of talk about that. The thing charges really fast. It's common for me to run the thing down to 4 or 5% and then plug it in, and then before I know it, I look up and it's 100% battery after it's been charging for maybe an hour. Another thing is the weight and the thickness. This thing I'd say is probably 150% as heavy as my MacBook Air, which is really saying something considering it's a MacBook Air. And the computer is significantly more powerful and the battery lasts significantly longer. It's nice because I can just pick it up one-handed and show my friends something if I need to. It's not a big heavy laptop that I have to move around. So some other things are, I guess, my MacBook Pro setup, so I'll just pan the camera around here. So I have the MacBook Pro, of course, and that is a Lamical, I think is how you pronounce it, laptop stand. And the computer uses Thunderbolt 3 to connect to an OWC Thunderbolt dock there. And then of course I have my LG ultrawide there, and the ultrawide's a nice monitor, but I think this is LG's second lowest end model, and the PPI is pretty big on it. But it certainly gets the job done, and I quite like it. Under that is my keyboard. This keyboard's been with me for nearly 5 years, I want to say, and it's still working well. I do kind of wish I had a backlight for it though, because I do a lot of work when it's dark and everything's at its lowest brightness, and I really can't see where I'm typing. And then there is a Razer Naga Chroma, I think it is, and I bought that off my friend for 50 bucks more or less. And it's a very nice mouse. I don't have anything configured on it with like hotkeys or anything, but it's still really nice to use. Under that I have another one of those gray generic mouse pads. I think I got a 2-pack at Staples for like 10 bucks of those. And then next to that I actually have a Magic Trackpad, and that's just so I can do things like gestures and stuff. I also have a fan control application called TG Pro, and that is an $18 application. And before you go to the comments and tell me I should have used SMC fan control or Max fan control, Kyle, I paid 18 bucks for it because it allows me to make custom fan curves so I don't have to manually change the RPM, and overall it's a very nice application. Of course I have it installed so I can keep the fans running at a higher speed because Apple really made the fan curves strict on this computer. The reason I bring that up is because initially when I bought it and installed it there was no support for this computer. That lasted for about 3 weeks when they added the ability to either run the fans at full speed or let the system take over, and shortly after that they allowed custom fan curves. So of course I bought this MacBook in late August, and Apple released new video card options for these, but that's not too big of an issue for me. I'm happy with the computer. And if I remember correctly, they'll still be offering this model, and the upgraded video cards are a price increase. Another thing is, because I have issues with Linux and stuff on this computer, I am probably going to be selling it over summer. I just kind of want to get my use out of it because it's going to deprecate over time, and like I said, I'd like to get my money's worth out of it. If I'm going to sell it for $2,500 or $2,600, that's a lot of money I'm kind of losing out on from when I bought it, and so like I said, I just like to get my use out of it. Going back on those video cards, I have had some weird issues where when I switch accounts, the dedicated video card still stays online, even when I'm not doing anything graphically intensive, and when I actually log out of those accounts. TG Pro also has some issues with switching accounts, but I think I just have to add my custom fan curves to the new accounts for that to work. Of course, I have to do that manually. There's no configuration file I can copy. There have been a couple times where the computer will stay on a black screen when I wake it up from sleep mode. That happened a few days ago. And also the system will sometimes turn on randomly. That's mainly when I have it connected to my dock. I'll plug it in at night to charge, and then I'll come in here, grab it, throw it in my laptop bag for school, and the system feels like it's been running. And of course, about a week ago, this computer got its first dent. Of all things, I dropped a DisplayPort cable. That fell on the lid, and there's a small nick in the top of it now. It's kind of funny though, there are times when I take it out of my backpack and I'll accidentally hit it against the cinder block wall at school, and from that there have been no dents, no scratches, nothing. It's just that DisplayPort cable falling on the lid nicked it. So before I end this video off, I kind of wanted to do like a Q&A, so I went into the comments and there was only one comment that had a question in it. So a guy under the alias Stalinborn kind of talks about how he thinks I should have gone with the 560X versus the 555X. He basically says it was kind of stupid for me to go with the 555X. I'll talk about that more in a sec. He also thought it would be better to spend an extra $100 on the 2.6 GHz processor versus the 2.2 that I have in here. Like I said, I wanted to keep this computer as cool as possible. MacBook Pros have been known for video card failure due to overheating, so that's about half the reason I went with that. I wanted to keep this machine pretty low cost. I was spending $3,000 on it already, and I didn't need the Core i9. I didn't need really anything more than a 2.2 GHz base processor. Same with a video card. It was a bump in price for the 560X. So I decided to go with a cheaper option, which still does just fine. So yeah, I think that's really all I want to say about this computer so far. My experience with it has been certainly more good than bad, and overall I'm pretty happy with it. So with that said, I have a lot of videos that are already filmed and edited and ready to be uploaded. I just haven't uploaded them because I wanted to get this video out first, and I should be going back to that one video a week or so schedule. So yeah, I guess with that said, that's all I have to say. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.